So welcome everyone to this training session on Azure Data Engineering. My name is Shreyas and I'll be taking this course for you. Before we dive into what this course is all about, what it brings to the table, how it will benefit you, we quickly have an introduction to myself. So my name is Shreyas. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I have more than 11 Azure certificates. I've been training since past 10 years and I've trained almost more than 80,000 students on Azure. Right. I'm enthusiastic about cloud and data, and I'll be guiding you through the entire journey of becoming an Azure data engineer. So, as you all know, the world right now it is experiencing an unprecedented surge in the data generations. Right, every organization, every industry is heavily relying on data, and that is where the job of a data engineer also comes into the picture. The demand for a skilled data professional, especially data engineers, right, it has skyrocketed. So if you're considering a career shift or you're just starting your professional journey, Azure data engineer is going to offer you an excellent opportunity, right, to advance into your future. Now the course, we'll just quickly discuss about the course as to what it is going to be like. Now, it's a 30-day program, right? Where we'll have lectures from 1 to 1.5 hours every day. These lectures will be made available to you through our LMS, and you will have continuous access to these lectures, right? On-demand videos. Along with that, you get a couple of more things. You get hands-on labs for 60 days. So we have labs which are provided by Microsoft themselves, and you will have access to those labs for 60 days. All right. Now, these labs are both guided and challenge labs. So in the guided labs, you will have instructions written on your screen, which you have to follow in the Azure portal. And when it comes to the challenge labs, there you will not have instructions, but you will have an architecture to implement. You will have a problem statement to solve. And those labs are also a part of the hands-on labs that we'll be giving to you. Now, combined, there are almost more than 25 labs in total. All right. So there are 25 different hands-on scenarios that you can practice on Azure Data Engineer through these labs. All right. The next thing is that each of these labs, right, you will have 10 attempts to it. So 25 labs with 10 attempts for each lab will give you around 250 labs. All right, so you will have 250 instances where you can launch these lab sessions and practice yourself. Along with that, we're also going to provide you with the practice questions for the certification exams, along with an exam prep session where we'll also let you know how you can, register for the exam, prepare for the exam, what are the different ways in which you can write the certification exam, whether it's an online mode or the offline mode, and what all you need to keep in mind before, choosing any one of these modes to write your certification exam. On top of that, we'll also help you build your resume. We'll also help you build projects that you can add to your resume. So we will have sessions, dedicated sessions towards the end of the session, where we'll introduce you to certain Azure data engineering projects. We'll guide you through the entire architecture of how it was implemented and what is required for the implementation, which obviously you can go ahead and add into your series. I hope that is clear. So this is a gist of what we'll be providing you with. Now, let's first try to understand as to why data engineering is skyrocketing. All right. So there is a recent report by AIM Research, right? They have studied the growth of data engineering market in India, and they've said, or they've found that the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, right? Let me just put it into simple terms. The annual growth rate of data engineering jobs or the data engineering sector in India it stands around 34%. All right. So 34% over the next 5 years. And this particular significant growth trajectory will see this particular industry in India expanding from around $30 billion today to approximately $125 billion by year 2028. Right now, this is the type of growth, right, which is now presenting an immense opportunity for data professionals. Now, along with that, the growing demand for talent is also there. The need for people with experience in data engineering is rising sharply, right? There's a demand for all sorts of experience, whether you're a fresher, whether you're a senior talent, right? Data engineers with those 6+ years of experience, it has increased by almost from 27% last year to almost 38% this year, right? They're offering attractive salary packages. Now, data engineering is one of the highest paying jobs as of now, with the highest growth as well, right? Job availability, if you talk about job availability, so as of now, today, there are almost 11,000 job openings across different job portals in India, which are based on data engineering. All right, where BFSI is the biggest sector, then you have retail sector, you have telecom sector, and these three sectors are basically, taking over around 70% of the data engineering job market. There is improved job retention for data engineers. All right, attrition rate over for data engineers stands around 12 to 13%, which is where the industry average, apart from data engineering, is around 18 to 20%. So that means companies are more inclined towards retaining talents with knowledge about data engineering and in Azure. Now, another question that you may have right now is why to choose for Azure with data engineering. Now, there are several reports, and I'll show you one of them, which suggests that Microsoft Azure it has emerged as one of the most popular cloud platforms. All right. And there are multiple reasons to it. If you compare AWS and Azure market as of now, so AWS has a bigger market share, but not much bigger. It's only 1 or 2% bigger than Azure. But the growth of Azure is much, much, much higher than AWS. All right. So that shows that in recent times, everybody is moving towards Microsoft Azure because of the comprehensive suite of services that it offers, right? The scalability that it offers, the robust security features that it offers. And that is why the organizations worldwide, they are increasingly adopting Azure for their data analytics and data engineering needs. Okay. So making Azure data engineer, they're going to, they're making it one of the most sought after skill today. Now, there was another report. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you, that this is the annual market. All right. So this is the annual international market for related to growth of Azure data engineers. So the international average stands around 18%. The Indian average stands around 34%. All right. Now, there is another market study for Azure data engineer. And these are some of the key findings from the study. I will first go towards the individual findings, and then we'll come back to this page and discuss more. Now, how the company conducted this analysis is that they went to job portals and they selected or they analyzed more than 1,000 job openings posted on the internet, right, on various websites or various portals, job portals. They analyzed those job postings and then they came out with these results that most of these job postings, right, if you look at your screen, 79.4% of these job openings wanted SQL as a skill, right? The next thing is that 75, almost 75, 74.5% of these job openings mentioned Azure. They want you to know about Azure, right? The rest is ETL, Spark, data lake, data modeling, Hadoop, all those different things. So that means that Azure is one of the most highlighted skills that these companies are posting online, or these companies looking for data engineers want you to know. They want you to know about Azure. All right. And not just want to know about Azure, there are other things also. When it comes to cloud skills, right? All these job openings will have certain cloud skills associated with them. Azure was mentioned in 74.5% of the jobs, right? AWS was mentioned in 50% of the jobs. GCP was mentioned in 21.3. You have Docker and Kubernetes, which are not cloud platforms. Yes, but these are technologies that are incorporated with cloud platforms and used, right? So this shows that the Microsoft Azure as of now, as things stand currently, has the highest demand in market when it comes to data engineering. All right. And not just the knowledge about it, almost 58.3% of the jobs which had cloud certifications required, out of that 60%, almost 60% wanted a Microsoft certified experience professional. All right. Only 25% organizations wanted a AWS certified professional. And then you have Google Associate, Google Professional. So this shows that not just the knowledge of Azure, not just the experience in Azure, the companies also want you to be certified in Azure. All right. And when you talk about being certified in Azure data engineering, there is only one certificate, that is DP 203, which is Azure Data Engineer. And this certification is what I can guarantee you that I can help you crack. We'll cover all the topics. Yes, we'll start from Azure. What is Microsoft Azure? I'll walk you through the basics of Azure because I'm pretty sure that most of you may not know what Azure is, what Azure portal looks like, what all are the services that Azure offers. And once we are done with that, we'll start with storage. We'll talk about Azure storage. We'll talk about data lake. Yes. And once we are done with the storage, once we are done with the data lake, now we'll start talking about the services that Azure offers. All right. We'll talk about Synapse. So you would have heard of the word Synapse a lot. Yes, it helps you create a SQL data warehouses in Azure. So Synapse is there, Azure Synapse Analytics Service. You have ADF, Azure Data Factory, that we're going to cover. We have Azure Stream Analytics that we are going to cover. All right. ADF is where we'll be creating the pipelines. All right. We'll create pipelines here. We'll see what are artifacts, right? What is mapping data flow. All of those things we'll cover in ADF. And then we'll move towards, managing streaming data, where we'll see event hubs. We'll see Azure Stream Analytics Service. Then we'll move towards the basics of Python. We'll talk about PySpark. We'll talk about, once we're done with Python and PySpark, yes, introductory lessons on Python and PySpark. We'll talk about the Spark tool, which is present in Synapse, how you can use PySpark to transform your data to, you know, uh, process your data in Synapse. Then we'll move on to Databricks, where we again, use PySpark, Scala to process our data. Then finally, we'll talk about data security in Azure. So if you want a high level picture, these are the topics or these are the major topics that we are going to cover. Right now, each of these topics will have 5 or 6 or 7 subtopics that we are going to discuss. For example, in Synapse, we just don't talk about Synapse. We talk about the serverless SQL pool there, the dedicated SQL pool there, the Spark pool that is a part of the Synapse service, the pipelines that you can create in the Synapse service, right? So similarly, all of these topics will have multiple subtopics that we are going to cover over the duration. Right. Now, moving back to the findings of the study, yes, so 10% of the companies that have posted these jobs have declared their location as remote, right? So I don't know if that excites you or if that is something that you're looking for, but it's just a finding that this report particularly has, which I was talking about. So as I said, yes, they took over 1,000 jobs posted on the job portals, and they have analyzed those jobs. Now, just over a quarter of these jobs posting, yes, they openly disclose the salary ranges. Microsoft Azure is the most important or the most essential cloud skill required with 74.5% jobs listing it as a necessary skill in order to apply for that job. Yes, then you have SQL and Python that are understandably very important for any data engineer. Yes, 23%, almost 23% of the postings, they did not specify any degree level, all right, which basically suggests that any person with a less traditional education also may still be competitive in this particular field. And according to Glassdoor, the average annual salary of data engineer in the US for 2024 is around $153,000. So it's a very attractive market out there with respect to data engineers, with the type of growth which is there, in the market. Even for a fresher, yes, why should a fresher consider a career in Azure data engineering? So even if you're a recent graduate or someone who's looking for a break into the tech industry, Azure data engineering is an excellent career path with a lot of immense growth potentials. All right. Now, now one more thing that I wanted to discuss with you, that what all are we going to do in this course? So first of all, we are going to have an in-depth coverage of all the topics that we had just discussed. All right. To add on top of that, this course will completely align with DP 203 certification and will have 70 to 80% alignment with these two certifications. Now, DP 203, I've already told you, it is Azure Data Engineer Certificate. All right. AZ 900 is Azure Fundamentals. And DP 900 is Azure Data Fundamentals. So these two certification also you can do by attending this course. That is the level of coverage that we are going to have. All right. Our initial 5 to 6 lectures are going to be completely based on Azure fundamentals, where I teach you what is Azure, what are different cloud models, what are different cloud services. Yes. Then the architecture of Azure, how it is built, how do you get higher availability, what all the features are there in place, right? Then we also talk about a few services where we'll talk about virtual machines. How do you create virtual machines? What are virtual machines? How do you work with databases in Azure? How do you work with storage accounts in Azure? What is networking in Azure? All of that basic, the fundamental knowledge in order to build the base for you so that, we can dive into the world of Azure data engineering, where once we start discussing about how things are going to work, how you're going to create resources, you don't have any confusions with relation to the Azure portal or Azure or what is a resource group, right? All of that will be clear right before we begin or dive into the Azure data engineering part. Yes. You get flexibility with learning, right? So you can either attend the live sessions, and if you're not able to, I would recommend everybody to attend live sessions, because it becomes easier for us to communicate. It becomes easier for you to ask your doubts, ask your questions if you have any during any point in time. All right. But even then, if you are unable to attend the session, you have access to the recordings on the LMS page, where you can go ahead, find the recording, go through the class, yes, and come prepared the next day. So that level of benefits you're going to get. Then hands-on lab support is what I would consider as the game changer here. And not just a game changer, but also a very important part of this course. All right. Because the course that we have created for you, we did not wanted you to have zero hands-on experience, or just give you uh, you know instructions how to create a free Azure account and then go do whatever you want to do there. We did not want that. We wanted a solution in place where you can have multiple labs, multiple scenarios, and then you can go ahead and implement it again and again and again, guided labs, challenge labs. And that is where we have sourced these labs from Microsoft themselves. And these labs are going to help you get a far better understanding of concepts when it's compared to just having a theoretical knowledge of the concepts. Because eventually, when you go for jobs, when you're going for interviews, you can proudly say that you have worked on the Azure portal. You have a good amount of hands-on experience when it comes to data engineering in Azure. All right. And then we'll also have the exam prep towards the end of the course, the interview prep support. Yes, because most of you would be looking to switch your careers into data engineering. And as things stands, the average height that a person would expect, right? I'm talking about average. I'm not talking about the minimum and the maximum. It's around 35% to 55 or 60% with Azure Data Engineer. So if you are switching into in the Azure Data Engineer role, yes, you can expect around 35 to 55, 60% hike in your salaries. All right. And as I've told you, the data market is growing, right? With the advent of internet, data is something which is growing at an immense rate, right? There was a time when you used to talk about gigabytes, terabytes. Yes, now it's petabytes, zettabytes. So data is increasing, and so is the demand for people who are going to manage that data. And as a data engineer, it is your job to manage this incoming data, to clean it, to make it available for analysis. That is what you're going to do. I hope that is clear to all of you. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Good morning, Sresh.
Hi, good morning, Santha.
Yeah, so whatever the market trend you have explained so far, is it as of now the demand for the Azure?
Yeah, these are all recently published reports
Okay, okay,
for 2024.
okay. Thank you. And all these training videos, will it be available after 60 days also, or like
The training
it's
videos will be available. The labs will be given to you, once you've started with the Azure Data Engineering services, right? So 10 days or 15 days into the course, you can expect the labs to be given to you, because giving it to you initially will have no effect because you're not going to practice it. You have not covered the topics as of now. So once we start with data engineering specific topics, that is when we give out these labs. And from that day, you will have access for 60 days to the labs, which can be extended if required.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
And these are the required topics, or there are furthermore to
Uh, Yeah. So the topics that I have mentioned here, these
Yeah.
are like the major topics that are there. But apart from this, there are multiple smaller topics as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Stace.
Yeah, hi, Pawan.
So, yeah, hi. So, what is the prerequisites to learn Azure and ADF? All list which you have mentioned.
Yeah. So the only prerequisite that I expect you to come with is knowledge of SQL, yes, and basic understanding of Python. These two are only the prerequisites which are there.
Okay. So, SQL and Python as well.
Yeah, Python basic understanding also if you have, right, it's fine because obviously you can build on top of it anytime. But SQL is important. A good
Oh,
knowledge of SQL is important.
yeah. Okay. So, I'm having SQL knowledge and ETL knowledge as well, and cloud
Mhm.
knowledge also I'm having, but Python I'm not having. So, yes.
Basic understanding of Python because see, eventually you want to work with Databricks, you want to work with Spark pools and Synapse. That is where PySpark will come into the picture. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not familiar with Scala, so you can use either Python or Scala. So generally people go for Python and not Scala, right?
Okay.
So the Scala is also a very in demand language as of now for data engineering. There is R as well. Yes, even Java works because Apache Spark Pools it supports Python, Scala, Java, R, all of it. So any one of them,
Okay.
if you can, if you have a basic understanding about it, it's a good to have thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Apart from that, we'll cover the basics of Python. Yes, we'll cover the basics of PySpark.
Mm-hmm.
In my examples, I will also show you examples with Scala. Yes, so we'll cover all three to an extent.
Okay. Yeah. Can you please help us to know before that Python basics, any guidance or any
Yes,
links
yes,
which
we can share that. But before we get into PySpark and all, we have a dedicated session for Python. Yes, where I
okay,
just walk you through the process of what Python is. Yes, some basics of Python. All of that we'll do. But if you want to practice, start it now, we can obviously share you the links that you can
sure.
use.
Okay, thanks guys. Yeah.
Others, do you have any questions? I'll wait for a couple of minutes. If anybody has any questions, please let me know, and then we'll begin.
Okay, I have a question here. So you said about this, you will help in this resume building, right? So currently also I'm into ETL space and into data engineering, but not relevant to Azure. Uh,
Mhm.
Obviously at the end I need some help in converting my resume uh, or putting some projects. Will that projects, whatever the 25 you said, we can showcase them as live projects or how does that work?
No, the 25 topics that I told you was about the hands-on labs, right? So you
Uh-huh.
will get more than 25 hands-on lab scenarios which you can practice. On top of that, I'll give you at least 3 to 4 projects, right? Now, those projects will have the architecture diagram, the implementation steps, all of that explanation I will give you, right? So that you can add it to your resume. And if questioned on that particular project, you can answer right from the architecture diagram to all the services used, how those services were used, which SKUs of these services are used, what benefit does a particular SKU of that service gave you, right, in order for implementation in that particular project, and then what was the final output. So that discussion we'll have towards the end of the session. We'll have a dedicated session for projects where I'll walk you through the process of, the process involved in implementation of each of those 4 to 5 projects that we are going to discuss, right? So that you can put it into your CVs as well.
Okay. And another one is you said you will be able to take up this DP203, right? Is there any
Yes,
kind of
definitely.
mock kind of certification questions or something which you can help with?
Yes, we'll be sharing sample questions with you.
Okay, cool.
Sample questions will be shared with you, interview questions will be shared with you, topic-wise interview questions will also be shared with you. Uh, Exam questions which are asked in the exam, a PDF for those questions will also be shared with you.
Okay.
See, the requirement at the end of the day is that the person should be a Microsoft certified data engineer. That is a requirement that all of these companies are posting, right? I just showed you that 60% uh, job openings required a certified professional. Yes, not just somebody who has knowledge of Azure data engineering, but somebody who's certified by Microsoft themselves to be able to work on Azure data engineering services. So this course is designed to help you get certified in Azure, right? To clear the DP203 certification. So we are going to give you all the help needed. We are going to give you the exam prep session, everything we are going to give you in order to get certified.
Okay, thanks.
Shreyas.
Hi, Anjali.
So after this course, can I apply for the positions like cloud data engineer or sorry, Azure cloud engineer and any other positions related to Azure?
See, Azure engineer or cloud engineer is a profile for administrators, right? Or mostly architects, right? Cloud
Okay.
architects, cloud engineers, cloud administrators. So that is a particularly different profile. Yes. With this particular course, once you're certified in Azure Data Engineering, you could apply to positions like Cloud Data Engineer, Azure Data Engineer, right? Uh, ADF developer in Azure or Databricks related role. Because see, everybody is not going to post a job opening with Azure Data Engineering as the title. Somebody would want a Databricks developer, right? Somebody will say, I want somebody who knows ADF. Some openings will have Synapse as a uh, required field. So that is there, but mostly cloud data engineer or Azure data engineer or data engineer. Those are the profiles that you can go for.
Okay. Thank you, Shreyas. And can you let us know what are the topics should be covered before entering? I mean, about Python. What are the
Mhm.
topics should be covered so that we can cover those topics in Python and then enter this course? Basics may.
It is not required on the first day, right? Python comes towards the end of the course, right? Once we are done with around 20 classes, 22 classes, that is when we introduce Python and PySpark, and that too on a basic level. Right? You do not need
Yeah.
to know very advanced Python because eventually you are going to learn Python. See, Python is a skill that is required by almost all data engineering jobs that are posted online. If you go and have a look at them. So Python is something that you will have to study eventually. SQL is something that you should know before joining this course. Python,
Yeah.
even if you have basic idea, you will understand everything that is mentioned over here and other things also that we're going to discuss. But SQL is something which will start directly from Synapse, right?
Yeah.
In Stream Analytics, when you're creating your query, yes. When in Databricks, you want to transform your data. So everywhere SQL will be used. So
Okay.
you need to have a good understanding of SQL.
Yeah. Okay, Shreyas, thank you.
Others, do you have any doubts?
Shreyas, one more question. Like,
Mhm.
what is then your turn? Like I'm working on Informatica Cloud. So, so what is your suggestion to migrate, like convert my skill set Informatica to Azure? I'm glad informing. Like I learned IACS from Nick only, Nick IT
Mhm.
Academy. So, just asking.
See,
Yeah.
that is what. So it's not something, that once you become an Azure data engineer, you're going to leave all your skills behind, right?
Mhm.
It's a really good thing that you already have an experience in this particular field. And the only reason that you will be coming to Azure data engineering because is of the high demand that Azure offers as of now, right? So even if you make that switch, even if you make that turn, you're coming to a place where you will have a lot more opportunities, right?
Okay.
So yeah, once again.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. Yes.
Mhm. So it's a good switch to make if you're planning on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, hi, Auntie.
Yeah, when this course is starting, and when is the approximate date we'll be completing this course?
So the course will most probably start on 13th, right? 13th, from 13th we'll have this morning session, that is 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 8:15 or 8:30 a.m. IST, and the course will get completed by almost December 25th, around that time, right? So just add 30 working days, and the course mentions 30 days, but ideally I take around 35, 36, 37 days, or even sometimes 38, 40 days to complete the course. All right. Uh, because to add more and more, uh, and it demands for me to go a bit slower, right? Because people want, there are questions, since all of you are new to Azure, since all of you are starting a journey in Azure, yes, there are going to be times where you will have doubts, you will have questions, and we'll have to take it a bit slow. So 30 sessions it mentions, but that is not a cap for me. I will take this course for almost 35, 36, 37 classes, right? And make sure that we cover all the topics which are necessary for you to go ahead and clear the Azure Data Engineering exam with ACE. Any more questions?
Shreyas, I'm into ATL, SAP BODS. So, and I
Mhm.
have SQL knowledge as well, and a little PLSQL and Python.
Mhm.
So now I think I feel like this is a good decision to move into Azure. Being an ATL,
Mhm.
so how do you suggest in that moving into this? So which is the ETL in this related to? I can relate to the ETL concepts in the Azure data engineer.
Yeah, so all these services from Synapse to Data Factory to Databricks to Stream Analytics, they all help you with the ETL process. All of these
Okay.
services, right? And I think this is a pretty self-explanatory. You would have heard of it a lot of times. The market buzz around terms like Azure Data Factory, Azure Databricks, yes, even Synapse to an extent, because these are the services which these organizations are using, yes, to create data pipelines. There is nothing more, you know, yeah, to create data pipelines, there is nothing more in demand compared to Azure Data Factory, all right, as a resource. Similarly, if you want to create scripts and transform your data using Apache Spark, Databricks is one of the most in-demand services in the market currently. And as the data I showed you, right, a lot of these organizations, they are requiring Microsoft Azure. You said you want to switch to Azure, and this is why you should switch to Azure, because most of these companies, they require Azure as a skill, as a cloud skill, in order for you to land into that cloud engineer or cloud data engineer job. All right. As I said, the market share of AWS currently is a little higher than Azure, yes, but the growth is much, much, much higher in Azure. And that is why it is taking over AWS. And eventually there will come a time where, Azure is going to be the market leader. Any service offered by Microsoft, it's not going to lag behind, right? That's not going to become obsolete in the future. It's only going to grow in demand.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, at times when I see these job postings, right, there are Azure data engineers requirement, but also combined with some of the reporting tools. They are asking for that also. Is that the general trend, or how does this usually this job descriptions look like?
No,
Sometimes I'm seeing Power
see,
BI or Tableau also
yeah, I
combined.
understand. So supplementary skills are always there, right? If you look at a job opening for an Azure developer or an Azure administrator, you will always find Docker, Kubernetes, all these terms mentioned there, right? So these are all add-on skills that are important, right? But to work with Power BI, for example, a business intelligence tool, that is a work of a data analyst, right? So if you divide the job profile in the world of data, right? You have data scientist, you have data engineer, and you have data analyst, right? And the roles and responsibility for all of these three different roles that we've discussed, it is very well defined. Yes, that a person who collects raw data from various sources, applies transformations to it, yes, cleans the data, brings it to a structured format, yes, and then uploads it to a warehouse, a data warehouse. That end-to-end job is of a data engineer, right? Then to use that data, the clean data, the transform data, right? Do analysis on it, create reports on it, use tools like Power BI. Yes, that is the role of a data analyst. And sometimes, yes, not sometimes, but most of the times, you will find these terms mentioned on those job postings like Power BI, yes, or even they will ask for some other Kubernetes also they will put, Docker also they'll put. So most of things they'll put. Yes, and that is absolutely fine, right? These are all additional add-on can have skills which are there. But the core skill that is of the Azure data engineer is what is more important, right? Because as of now, I can tell you in the market, there is a gap between the requirement or the demand for a good data engineer, yes, and what is available in the market. There's a huge gap between them. The quality that is available and the quantity as well. The quantity and the quality that is available versus the demand. And the demand is going to rise. Trust me, the demand is going to get skyrocketed for Azure data engineers in the near future. It is even today, right? It is even today there. But this is something which is always going to rise. So to answer your question in short, those skills are good to have skills, but those skills are not mandatory skills which will land you the job. All right.
Okay, perfect.
So, Shreyas, regular classes will start from 30th, right?
13th.
13th,
It's
sorry.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If possible, can you share us like Python basics related documents or any links? By
We'll
that
share.
time,
We'll
we
share.
can go through that.
Yeah, I'll share
After
both.
once, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, once class started, we may not get the time, so that is why.
Okay. I'll share the links with you.
Thank you.
All right. So, yeah.
Shreyas, how long do you give for Q&As soon after the class?
So I generally will allow you to ask questions as and when required. So if I'm teaching and you have a doubt, you can ask questions right there, right? And also after the class, if you have any questions, you can ask. But it's a we see interaction is what drives the class, right? So the more interactive we are in the class during the class, I keep on asking questions, and I expect all of you to keep on answering those questions that I ask throughout the class. And similarly, if you have any doubts, you can go ahead and ask those doubts. I will uh, clear them for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then, guys. So we'll start with day one. Yes, I think we had a really long discussion. So we'll just start with the basics of Azure. So I'm pretty sure, as I said, most of you are new to the world of Azure. We'll try to cover a few topics. Yes. We'll start with the basic of cloud concepts. Yes. What is cloud computing, right? So cloud computing in general, right? It is one second. Sorry, I'm just having a bad throat currently. Yeah. So cloud computing is a model. Yes, you can think of it like a model that gives you on-demand access to resources in the most basic terms. You get on-demand access to resources. Now, this resources term in Azure or in cloud computing terms, it's a very vast term, all right? Because resources could be of type compute, yes? Now, compute resources are any those resources which can have a CPU along with a RAM, yes? So your virtual machine is a good example of a compute resource. Your app service plan, yes? It's a good example of a compute resource. Now, app service in Azure is a service that allows you to host websites and web applications. All right. It's a platform as a service offering, which means you don't have to manage the operating system, you don't have to manage the underlying hardware, right? And you can host your web applications on Azure. We'll cover app service in detail. We'll also cover virtual machines in detail later on. But compute service is any service, or compute resource is any resource, yes, that you can create in Azure that will give you CPU, RAM. Then you have networking services or networking resources. Yes, a virtual network is an example of a networking resource, right? Now, when I talk of the term resource, what I'm trying to say here is that Azure is, or cloud computing is not just one thing. It's a collection of resources, collection of different things that you can do. I can create a virtual machine. I can also go ahead and create a database. Yes, I can go ahead and create a storage account. I can go and create a networking service. Right? So multiple types of resources that I can create. And all of this can be created on demand, which means as and when required. I do not have to go anywhere. I can do it with a few clicks on my machine itself, and it will help you in a lot of situations, right? For example, let's say you want to train a model, a machine learning model, and the data that you have to train that model is, let's say, 5 terabytes of data. Yes, 5 terabytes of data is there, and you need a machine with very high compute. When I say very high compute, I'm saying you need a machine with very high CPU, very high RAM in order to work, right, or for your machine learning workload that you have. Now, you don't have a machine like that, right? You don't have a machine with, let's say, 16 cores of CPU, 128 GB RAM, 5 terabytes of SSD storage. You may not have a machine like that. Now, the only way that you can solve this problem is by either going and getting a machine like this, all right, or getting a machine with these particular specifications, or you can switch towards cloud computing. You can get access to a machine with these specification within 5 minutes. And guess what? You don't have to pay for the machine. You do not pay for it. You only rent it. Yes, you don't have to buy it. You rent it. And the rent is also paid per hour. So let's say your requirement was only for 5 hours. Then you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to buy anything permanently. You just have to rent this machine for 5 hours. That is it. And the rent is pretty cheap. It's pretty cheap. It's not expensive rent. It's pretty cheap rent. All right. So cloud computing is a model that can help you in scenarios like this, where you have on-demand access, yes, to resources. You can do it without any human interaction. You can do it from your machine itself. Yes, if you want to create a virtual machine, if you want to create any other resource, for example, a storage resource. Yes, let's say you want to store 1 TB of data. Yes, so you can use these services offered by cloud and create an online storage account where you can put all of your data. All right. So you can create these resources, different resources. You can delete them, yes, if not required. And all of that you can do through the Azure portal. When you're talking about Azure cloud, you can do it through Azure portal. But Azure portal is not the only way of managing your cloud computing workloads. There are other ways also. You can use something called as CLI, you can use PowerShell, and all of that discussion we'll have towards the later stages. Yes, where we discuss how can you access Azure portal, how you can manage these different resources that you're going to create in Azure. All right. So for any workload that you have, any kind of workload, you will have a resource in Azure to help you out. Yes. For example, as I said, or if you want to create a network, you have a virtual network in Azure. If you want to create a firewall, you have Azure firewalls. If you want to work with VPN, you have Azure VPN. If you want to work with virtual machines and compute, you have virtual machines. If you want to create a storage account, you have Azure Storage. If you want to enable a hierarchical namespace in Azure Storage account, then you have Azure Data Lake. So all these different services, if you want to create a SQL database, you have Azure SQL. All of these different services are available in Azure that are going to help you to implement your IT infrastructure or IT workloads. Now, cloud computing became popular around 2010. Yes, it was around 2010 when these organizations or these companies came up with the concept of cloud computing. That companies or organizations could rent out these services. So when this came into the picture, companies were already working, companies were already operating, correct? These companies were already managing large amounts of data. These companies already needed a lot of servers. And how are they doing it? Does anybody have any idea? How were companies operating before cloud became popular? Did these companies do not have these data centers that they're using with cloud as of now? The answer is no. They had their data centers. They had something that we call as a private cloud. All right. The on-premise environment. Yes. So these are data centers which these companies built themselves. All right. Organizations would go ahead and create their own data centers. They would buy all the hardware, they would buy the servers, they would buy the storage account. Yes, they would implement cooling solution. They will rent out or they will pay for electricity. They would pay for internet. Everything the company end-to-end organizations were doing on their own. Yes, organizations themselves were responsible for operating the services inside these data centers. Which services will operate, which all services we want, Yes, all of that decision and implementation was done by these organizations only. They only gave access to people who were a part of that organization. Yes, for example, if you go to your company, yes, if in your organization, let's say if you have a data center, it will only allow employees, yes, who are supposed to access that data center. Now, this data center, which is also called as a private cloud, the on-premise environment, it is generally not accessible over the internet, right? Because anything accessible over the internet, it's not considered a good security, uh, good in terms of security. All right. So these private clouds, the on-premise environment, the data centers that these companies built before cloud became popular, right? In 1980s, 1990s, these companies would have had their requirements related to storage, related to compute, related to servers. Yes. And to address those requirements, they created their own data centers, right? Even today, you will find data centers which were built by these companies. These companies continue to use them. All right, it's a very huge investment that goes into creating a data center. So nobody's going to stop using them in a single day because there's a large investment that has gone in. Yes, but even still, you can find these data centers within organizations. But if you see the newer organizations, the upcoming organizations, generally you will not find a data center for them, right? They might not have a data center. Yes, because now they're all moving towards cloud. They're all moving towards public cloud. All right. So we'll talk about public cloud, but I hope the concept of private cloud is clear to you. This was the data center or the cloud environment. We call it cloud, but it's not really cloud. This is the local environment, the on-premise environment, the data centers that these companies built on their own. All right. Access is only given to people who are part of that organization. Then something changed. Yes, around 2010, what happened was, and I'll just give you an example so that it becomes easier for you to understand. All right. Let's say, and I'm just giving you, an idea as to how it came into the picture, and we'll try to understand with an example. All right. Now, just think that an organization, for example, Microsoft came to India in 2010. This is a hypothetical story about Microsoft, but this is how public cloud came into the picture. For example, in 2010, Microsoft came to India. Yes, they built a lavish office, they built a large office, and they said, okay, fine, we are going to build a data center. We are going to build a data center here. And this is what they built. They built this data center. All right. Let's say they said that I want 100,000, that is 1 lakh servers here. For example, let's say I want 1 lakh servers. I want 1,000 or 10,000 terabyte of storage. For example, I'm just giving an example here, right? Now, what happened in reality was that over a period, Microsoft realized that they are not going to use more than 20% of the data center. They're not going to use it. Yes, 80% is what they believed would never be used by them. All right. Or they might not use it in the near future. Right. They might use it someday, but as of now, as of for next 5 years, next 6 years, next 10 years, this is the capacity that we can hit off. 80% will remain unused. Now, if I ask you that, let's say you have a house, you have the ground floor, you have the first floor, you have the second floor, and you have the third floor. Let's say it's like this. And this is where you are living. Yes. Now, when you build this house, there's a lot of investment that went into building these floors as well. Yes. Now, with any investment, you want a return. Yes, in your house, the possible return could be that you are either yourself living on all of these floors. Yes, that is also a return because you don't have to pay any rent, you have space. But here in this case, these three floors were constantly empty. Yes, you put a lot of money into building all these floors, but then it is not paying you back. So what do? What will you do to get some return out of this empty space that you have?
You
Let it
rent.
rent out.
Yes, we rent it out. We give it to others, but we do not give ownership. I don't want to give you ownership. I just want to rent this out. I just want you to be here for a while. And if required in future, I will take over the space. Correct?
Yeah.
If I don't want you here in future, I'll just ask you to leave. And that is exactly what these organizations also implemented in their data centers. Let's rent this out. Let's rent out this extra space. Yes, where the rent is on an hourly basis. Yes, you pay us hourly and we let you use these resources. By doing this, we are getting a lot of return from this investment that we made. Yes, the data center that we made, and I will not give you any ownership of the data center. We will not get any ownership here. It's a strictly renting business. You cannot access the data centers also. You will not be allowed to enter the data center if you only want to. If you want to access your resources, your services, go to a web page, open Azure portal, and manage it from there. But we will not allow you to enter the data center. So this is how cloud computing or public cloud was born, right? Where these services were provided on rent to organizations. All right. It could be provided to an organization, it could be provided to a user, and people will access it over the internet. All right. So that was your public cloud, which these cloud service providers, these companies that we discussed, right? Microsoft, for example, the example that we took, these companies are called CSPs. All right. CSP stands for cloud service providers. All right. So these CSPs, they let you rent this space out, all right, and use them for your work. And that is how public cloud came into the picture and continues to run. All right. Microsoft will create these data centers around the globe. AWS is creating these data centers around the globe, and they are including or they're introducing all of these different services that can help you, you know, perform your tasks. Then, let's say, for example, there is Infosys. Yes, Infosys built a lot of data centers, but the problem with data centers is that it requires a lot of management, it requires a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of money that goes into building the data centers, right? And we'll also see the comparison. There are two calculators provided by Azure, which can show you how much money you're going to spend, yes, when creating your own data center versus how much money you're going to spend when you're going to have all of that workload on Azure, right? Or you're going to take up those many, let's say, servers, that much of storage, this much of network bandwidth. The output, I will show it to you, but it's pretty less. It's almost 15%, 10 to 15% of what you will be spending when you create your own data center. Yes. So when you create your own data center, let's say you are spending 100 rupees, then you will only end up spending around 10 to 15 rupees by using services provided by Microsoft. All right. So Infosys has its own data center, but then it realized that we don't have to spend so much on this infrastructure management and infrastructure maintenance along with infrastructure building. I don't have to build these data centers anymore. I don't have to manage them and I don't have to do the maintenance work. I will give all my workloads to Microsoft, for example, let them handle the data, let them handle the resources. Yes, let them hire people who are going to maintain these data centers for them or work in these data centers for them. And that is when another cloud model was born, and that is your hybrid model or the hybrid cloud model. This is only applicable to organizations who already had a private cloud and are now using services offered by public cloud. So you have presence on both public and private cloud. All right. Now, when you talk about these three cloud services that we've seen or the cloud models that we've seen, right? There's something else that we need to discuss, and that is the cost. Because when working with Azure, cost is something that you always have to keep in mind. All right. Even if you become a cloud engineer, you become a data engineer, yes, you become a cloud developer, cost is something which will follow you. It will haunt you. It will always be behind your back. Yes, because organizations, they don't want solutions. They want cost-effective solutions. Yes, and there are various ways in which you can improve the cost of a solution that you proposed. All right. That is why cloud economics today is very important. If you just search for cloud economics, you will find that this is also a knowledge, something that people are working on, yes, in order to bring down the cloud costs. Because for you and I, it might not look like a high cost to us. But when you're talking about an organization, yes, for them, it's in millions of dollars. And that is why every time you implement a solution, you will be asked for cost optimization to that solution. Yes, for example, in back in the day when you used to implement a solution, let's say programming solution with C, C++, they would say, what is the time complexity? Improve that. Something very similar with cloud. What is the cost? Optimize it. So when you're talking about cost, there are two different types of cost associated. One is CapEx. Second, OpEx. CapEx stands for capital expenditure. OpEx stands for operational expenditure. Now, capital expenditure basically means all the initial investment that you make. Yes, for example, when you're building a house, the cost of bricks, the cost of cement, the cost of labor that are going to build that house, and all different costs associated, that is a capital expense. That is a one-time investment. All right. You can also think of CapEx as a one-time cost, right? You're not going to buy bricks every month, every year, right? You're not going to buy cement every month, every year. So capital expenditure is a one-time capital expense, initial expense that you need to make in order to build something. Then you come to the operational part of it. Yes, for your house, you will have electricity. Yes, you will have house tax, you will have water tax. All of that has to be paid annually. This is operational expenditure. This is recurring cost. This is not a one-time cost or initial investment cost. This is a recurring cost. Electricity bills, house tax, water tax, right? All of these different costs are your recurring cost. You have to pay them every year. Is that clear? Does that clear the difference between capital expenditure and operational expenditure? The one-time cost and the recurring cost? Yes?
Yes.
So when you talk about cloud services, for example, in Azure, CapEx is like buying servers, buying all the hardware along with the servers. Yes. let's say, just give me a minute. Sorry. Yeah. Buying servers, buying hardwares, getting the building itself. Yes, you might want to build a building where you're going to host this data center. So these are all capital expenditures. Yes, the initial cost. Buying storage devices. Yes. Again, that is all part of the hardware itself. Yes, implementing a cooling solution. All of that is a capex. When you come to OpEx part of it in cloud, yes, you will have you will have electricity bills, you will have internet bills that you're going to pay every month, you will have salary here. Why salary? Because you will have cloud administrators working in your data centers. Yes, cloud engineers working in your data centers, and you need to pay them a salary to manage and maintain that particular data center, right? So salary is also an operational expenditure. Now, this is where you are putting your money directly, right? Apart from this, there is also another type of cost associated in cloud computing. Can you tell me? When I am using Azure, I am using cloud, correct? When you and I are going to use Azure, we are going to use cloud services. Are we going to pay the capex? Yes or no? Are we required to pay the capital expenditure?
No.
The answer is no.
No.
Microsoft will manage that. Yes, or
Yes.
any cloud service provider is going to manage that. Are we going to pay the operational expenditure here?
No.
We are not going to pay. Microsoft is not going to send their electricity bills to us, internet bills to us, or the salaries to us. Yes, that I need to pay this salary, give me the money. What they ask us is rent. Is that correct? We only pay the rent. Now, if you look closely, capital expenditure is something that you will have in a private cloud, correct? When you're building your own data center, then you will incur capex. Yes or no? Similarly, operational expenditure is also a part of private cloud, because if you have your data center, only then you are going to pay for electricity, internet, and salary. Yes, I hope that is clear to all of you. Capital expenditure will only be there if you're creating your own data center, right? That is a private cloud, the on-premise cloud. Similarly, electricity, internet, and salary also you will pay if you're creating your own private cloud. Rent is something that you will pay in case of a public cloud, correct? Do you all agree with this?
Yes.
Yes. So now my question is, we have seen three different clouds: hybrid, public, private. You tell me which is the most expensive cloud. You have to tell me which cloud model out of these three is the most expensive one.
Private.
Private?
Yeah.
Others?
Right. Yes.
Hybrid.
So we have one for hybrid, one for private. Who else? Let's see. Now, I told you we have three different types of costs, correct? Associated with our cloud models. One was your public cloud. Second was your private cloud. And third was your hybrid cloud. Yes, these three are the cloud models that we have, and we have three types of costs. We have capex, we have opex, and we have rent. Now, do we have capex in public cloud? Yes or no?
No.
No.
No, right? Because we are not responsible to build the data center. That is the job of the cloud service provider. When you're using public cloud like Azure, you don't have to build the data center, correct? That is the cloud service provider's responsibility. That is why we do not have CapEx in public cloud. Do we have OpEx in public cloud?
No.
No.
We don't have, right? Do we have rent in public cloud?
Yes.
Yes.
We do. Now coming to private cloud, do we have CapEx in private cloud?
Yes.
Do we have OpEx in private cloud? Yes, because it is our own data center, so we need to manage the operations part of it. Do we have rent in private cloud?
No.
No, because I'm using my own cloud. I do not need to rent services. Coming to hybrid, do we have CapEx in hybrid cloud?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because it's a combination of public and private, right? So you would have built a private cloud
Yes.
already. So you will have CapEx. You will also have OpEx. And do you have rent
Yes.
here? Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So now can you tell which is the most expensive one?
The hybrid.
Hybrid cloud is the most expensive one. And over here, we are considering for the similar workload. All right. Whatever workload we are using here in public cloud, whatever workload we are using here in private cloud, the sum of that, right? So that is there. When talking about security, can you tell me which cloud is the most secure?
I think hybrid is the more secure because you have your data
Yeah.
center with.
Yeah. So private cloud is considered to be most secure, and that is why you will see banks and organizations who have a lot of critical information, defense organizations like your ISRO, DRDO, all these organizations, they have still not moved to a public cloud. They try to create their own data centers and they try to store their data in those data centers itself. All right, you would have not seen banks using public cloud recently. Yes, they have their own servers, they have their own data centers. Correct? And that is why when you go to SBI or any other bank, you would have seen that it says the servers are down because they are managing their own infrastructure and they're not managing it very well. They're managing it poorly, but they're managing their own infrastructure. The reason behind this is anything accessible over the internet is considered to be not safe, right? And that is why, as a cloud engineer, whoever wants to become a cloud engineer, they will see that when you create a VM, you generally do not associate a public IP with it. To improve the security of my virtual machine, I remove public IP from it. What is public IP? Public IP is the IP associated with the network interface card of my virtual machine that will allow access over the internet to that VM. So anybody over the internet can connect to that virtual machine if the VM has a public IP. And this is considered as a big security threat. All right, your VM should not be accessible over the internet. All right, I'm not saying that this is public cloud is unsafe or something. I'm just saying that private cloud in general is thought to be more secure because it is not accessible over the internet. All right. I hope that is clear to all of you. The three cloud models, the difference between them. Yes.
Yep.
All right. So
Yes.
we'll stop the demo here. And I hope to see you guys on Wednesday so we can start building on top of the discussion that we have had today. All right. So thank you for joining in, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'll see you all on Wednesday. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Actually,
You.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hi.
Thank you.
Yes, so I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined late. Okay. So I'm trying to switch. I'm currently working in IICS as a so in cloud CDI. Okay, IICS
Mm-hmm.
CDI, and I would like to switch my job into Azure and Azure PySpark Python. So will this
Mm-hmm.
course be a correct course for me?
Yes, absolutely. If you want to switch into a data engineering role, the first
Okay.
thing that you need, yes, is a data engineer certificate from Microsoft. Because something we have already discussed that a lot of or a majority of job openings, almost 60% of them, they require you to be certified in Azure, all right? Certified in DP 203. And this course will cover all the topics that you've just mentioned, PySpark, Databricks. Yes. Along with that, we'll also see other services that you'll be using, like Synapse, like Data Factory, like Stream Analytics, like Data Lake, which is very important for you to understand if you want to understand data engineering on Azure on the whole.
Okay. So this course is for mainly for DP 203. I mean,
Yes, this is for DP 203 certification.
it's just
And
not
along
like
with
that. Doing a job based training, not right?
it is job based. See, eventually it all comes down to whether you have the understanding and knowledge of different cloud services that help you with data engineering workloads. Yes. And that is something
See,
that
I
we are going
already
to
cleared
cover.
DP203. I already cleared DP203. I joined this course to this class to check whether I can try for jobs from. So even after clearing DP203, I'm not sure. I'm not very clear. I'm not able to switch my job with the certification only.
Yeah, so
So
that
that's
is
what I'm.
because you might not have the relevant project experience, relevant hands-on experience, and that is also that we are going to help you with. We'll help you add project experience to your profile, to your resume, so that you can apply and get one second. Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll help you with around 4 to 5 projects, yes, that you can add to your resume. We'll discuss the complete architecture of those project implementations along with the services, along with the SKUs of the services, and the process of implementation and the output of as well. Yes, so you have a good enough experience added to your CV.
Okay. Thank you, Faiz.
All right. So thanks a lot for joining, everyone.